Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can tell, I'm wearing my Canada shirt. So obviously today I'm going to be talking about a Canadian TV show. That might not have been obvious to you, but I'm wearing my Canada shirt, so I'm going to be talking about another Canadian TV show I watch besides Heartland. So this TV show actually, it had 7 seasons. It's a bit of an older one. It's in the 90s. Set on Prince Edward Island, family. If you're not Canadian or have never seen the show, I'm just going to tell you now, it's Road to Avonlea. If those of you are trying to guess, I'm sorry if I spoiled it for you. So, yeah, Road to Avonlea. Story of a family living in the, early 19th century, so like 7th season I know was 1911, so I believe it starts about 1904. So basically the beginning of the 19th century. Prince Edward Island, which is one of my family's favorite places to vacation. We've only been there twice, but still we love it there. And I actually did realize that a lot of the TV shows I watch are about dragons, horses, and families. But this TV show is a bit different than How to Train Your Dragon is. That's just like people trying to prove to the world that dragons are not what we think they are. And Heartland is about family living on a ranch in the Rockies and all the troubles they face, and some episodes on horses. Little House on the Prairie, which I talked about last week, story of a family during, story of a family, pioneer, they're not the pioneer family. The book is Pioneer. Sorry if I'm mumbling. It's a story of a family living in the 1880s in a town, and that one also is mostly about all the trials they face. This one, it's kind of the same thing, except it's Prince Edward Island in the 1900s. And then we'll be talking about another series next week, so stay tuned for that. So, unlike many of the other shows, so How to Train Your Dragon, the TV shows, Riders of Berk, Defenders of Berk, and Race to the Edge, I only watched those with my sister. Partially because my mom kind of thinks it's kind of pathetic, because, there were some, really funny and good episodes, if you know what I mean. And my parents aren't really into that kind of stuff. Whereas Heartland and Little House on the Prairie, I mostly watched it with my sister and my mom. I have watched it. My dad has watched a few episodes. He knows what the series is. He can tell you the general idea, but he doesn't prefer to watch them as much. Whereas Road to Avonlea, my dad... So this series is also based off of a book, like most, if not all of them I watch. Just a second, guys. Sorry about that, I just forgot to close my door. And so this one is also based off of a book, but very, very loosely, like most of the TV shows. Heartland, the first season's close, but the rest is far off. How to Train Your Dragon, there's some Race to the Edge episodes that are close to the books, but I'm not going to get into that now. Lost in the Prairie, some episodes are, most of it's far off, though. This one's kind of far off, too. It's based off of the Story Girl, which is where most of the characters come from. It's also based off of Chronicles of Avonlea. Now, I've never read them. My dad has read them. I think my sister's read Chronicles of Narnia. Yes, she's read Chronicles of Narnia, but she's also read Chronicles of Avonlea. So, my dad's into all that Anne of Green Gables stuff, so he watched this show with us. So, yeah, most of the characters, I think, like Sarah, Felicity, Felix, and a few others, are based off of Story Girl. But I've never read the book, so I'm not sure. Chronicles of Avonlea, there's a few episodes in there. So and the reason I know this is because as we were watching, my dad would say, "Oh, I remember this," and he would explain what happened in the book. It was a bit different. Now again, I like seasons 5, 6, and 7, which is completely different than my family because my mom and my sister don't really like later seasons. In Little House on the Prairie, they only like the first 6. I like up to season 8. Season 9's a bit weird. And then for Heartland, the first 11 seasons are good. I don't really like 12 and 13. Road to Avonlea, they're all good. They kind of like 1 to 3, 4 maybe, I'm not sure. I like 5 to 7. I like them all, but 5 and 7 I think are the best. And then for Waltons, which is what I'm going to be talking about next week. And then it'll be back to How to Train Your Dragon. So for you How to Train Your Dragon fans. So Waltons, it's pretty much the same. I only like 9, but the rest are kind of good. Same with now Road to Avonlea. This one is also, in all the series I watched, they all have at least one movie. This one has a Christmas movie that I've never seen, which takes place about 4-ish years later during the First World War, and I've never seen it. So, basic idea about Road to Avonlea. It's, story of a family living in Prince Edward Island. And the first few seasons, it mostly follows a story of Sarah, her cousins, and then her cousins Felicity, Felix, and Andrew, Cecily. But they do put some episodes which have Aunt Olivia, Aunt Hetty, Aunt Alec, and Uncle Alec and Aunt Janet, which are Uncle Alec and Aunt Janet are Felicity and Felix's parents. And then they'll have some episodes where it's about them and the school kids. But then later, Sarah leaves in the 5th season. Sarah does leave for a bit because she does visit her nanny Louisa in Montreal and a few other things. But by the 5th season, she's like with her nanny Louisa or something. And then in the 6th season, she returns, and then we find out she goes to a school in Paris on writing. Then she returns for Felicity and Gus's wedding. Sorry if I'm spoiling any of this for any of you. So that's pretty much the general idea of the series. So why I like this series. It's different than all the other series I watch. It's mostly about a family living in Prince Edward Island and why they're proud to be in Prince Edward Island. So that usually doesn't come like in Heartland. They do some stuff about Alberta, like Alberta beef and stuff. And Little House on the Prairie, we do see some Independence Day stuff. But Road to Avonlea, there is a lot of winter episodes, which that just happened by default, I believe. And there's also a lot of Dominion Day stuff and a lot of Avonlea celebrating stuff, which is one thing. I love Canadian pride and stuff because I'm Canadian. But also it's another one of those family shows. Now, for like reading books and TV shows, I like them completely different. Same with movies. Movies, I love a good Christian movie. I love action movies. I love animated movies. I don't really like, I've never seen superhero movies. I've only seen one Star Wars movie. So that stuff, I've never seen, but the stuff I mentioned before, the Christian movies, the good, clean action movies with no swears, and appropriate stuff for me and kids, and anime movies, I love that stuff. For TV shows, family stuff. I love stories about families and them struggling together and overcoming that barrier. How to Train Your Dragon, I just love How to Train Your Dragon in general. So, yeah. Then with books, I like fantasy stuff, which is where my How to Train Your Dragon stuff comes from. But I also like books about teenage people overcoming certain barriers. I also like historical fiction, but I recently read a book called The Possibility of Now. It was about a girl named Mara who was trying to overcome her way of life, trying to figure out who she was and what her purpose was in life. I enjoyed that book. Another book I really enjoyed was Resistance. It was about a Jewish girl named Shea, or I'm not Jewish, so I don't know how to pronounce it, in Poland, and resisting the Germans and all that so she can fight for what she believed. I love stories about those as well. And Road to Avonlea, it's kind of all that in a nutshell. They're fighting for what they believe in some episodes. They're fighting to keep Avonlea a town and not some kind of modernized city thing or like a town thing that people visit, like, those historical towns, although those are cool. Or like a big city that merges with Carmody. And then some characters, like Gus and I think Jasper goes through it a few times too. They kind of figure out what their purpose is in life, and all the characters go through a boundary they have to overcome. Sarah has to overcome her father's death and all that, and living in Prince Edward Island. Felicity has to overcome Gus's death and quite a few other things, because, Felicity is kind of a brat, and she just basically overcome that. Felix has to overcome being the oldest and only son, the one who will take over the farm. Cecily has to overcome her tuberculosis, and Hetty and Olivia have to overcome each other, and Hetty has to stop and remember that Olivia is not a little girl that she can boss around, and Olivia has to know that she has to stand up for herself. And that's, like, pretty much it. And I also realized that when I'm introducing a series, these videos are usually about 4 to 6 minutes. This one is about 12. So this is the longest one, mostly because I've been talking about other stuff, because Road to Avonlea, there isn't that much I can talk about. So I've kind of put in some other stuff about Road to Avonlea. This is actually the series I watched recently for the first time. When I was about 9 or 10, and I still had my VHS player, we would get some episodes from my grandma and some episodes we had found, and watch those on VHS. Those were the episodes I remember the most. And then recently we got back into it, watched season 1, then the library closed down because that's where we were getting it from. So we ordered them from Amazon, and now we have all 7 seasons. We don't have the Christmas movie though, and we can't find it anywhere. And that's basically what we did when the quarantine first hit, from March to about May, June, actually April. We'd watch it. Now that was when my dad was on like day shifts or not working. And I don't want to say where my dad works just because of security reasons, which is also why I don't reveal anything about my personal life. And yeah, that's pretty much how I became to know and love Road to Avonlea. And this video is about 14 minutes, so I'm going to stop talking and end this video. And I apologize for the rest of the random stuff I put in this video. If you were expecting a Road to Avonlea video, I apologize. So you guys stay tuned for tomorrow's video, or it's Wednesday and this is Thursday's video, so I guess Friday's video, where I'll be discussing who Avonlea's main character is. And stay tuned for next week where I talk about the Waltons. And then stay tuned for the week after that, where I'm going to go back to How to Train Your Dragon and do some comparisons from books and movies. See you guys.